Number 1 on this assignment says x to the third plus 9x squared plus 23x plus 15. Because this is an x to the third polynomial, it has 3 factors. So something like this. Now, those factors might be like x plus 3 and x plus 1 and x minus 5 or something like that. We don't know what they are, but we want to figure out what they are. And when it's an x squared equation, we can just factor it. But this is an x to the third, and I don't even know how to factor an x to the third. So how are we going to figure those out? Well, luckily, the assignment gives us one of the factors. So it says f of x is that x to the third polynomial, and x plus 5 is one of the factors. So I can write x plus 5 in here. Now, let's think about how numbers are put together. If I had, let's do 30, and I said, find all of the factors of 30. And you didn't really know how to do that, but I told you that 5 is a factor. What can I do to simplify this problem? If I told you, what are the factors of 30? And you're like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And I said, 5 is a factor. What can I do with 5 to make this problem easier? Oh, well, you know the answer, so you skipped straight to the answer. Let's say you didn't know that. But I can take 30 and divide it by 5. How do I know that works? Because I told you that 5 is a factor. So I'm going to take 30 and divide it by 5, and I end up with the number 6. What are the factors of 6? 3 and 2. So it turns out my factors are 5, 3, and 2. Okay? I made it up. It's not on your paper. Okay? So let's say we do that again. 28. And let's pretend you don't know what goes into 28, but I tell you that 2 is a factor of 28. How do I make this problem easier? 28 divided by 2 is 14, and you say, oh, I know what the factors of 14 are. They're 2 and 7. So the factors in this case are 2 and 2 and 7. That make sense? So if we have a complicated situation, and we know one of the factors, we can divide it to make it simpler, and then we can take that simplified version and factor it to find the remaining 2 factors. That's what we're going to be doing today, but we'll be doing it with equations instead of numbers. Okay, so I know x plus 5 is a factor, which means if I divide it, I will get remainder. What's the remainder when you divide a number by one of its factors? 0. Okay, so I'm going to put x plus 5 on the left. Everybody do this. This is problem number 1. And I don't know how many rows this equation has. What's the first step? I said rows. I don't know how many columns it has. We bring down the x cubed. Now we remove an x from x to the third, which gives me x squared. So in that square, I have x times x times x, which is x to the third. I take one of those out to the side, which means there are 2 on top. What's next? I take the x squared and I multiply it by 5, and I get 5x squared. Okay. We add a column. Here's where it gets tricky. Excuse me. This box and this box need to add up to be 9x squared. I have 5x squared and I need 9x squared. How do I get there? Add 4x squared. Next step, take out an x. So 4x squared, I remove an x, and I'm left with 4x. So that goes on top. Then I do the multiply again. 4x times 5 is 20x. Am I done? Nope. How do I know I'm not done? I haven't used all of the numbers in the original problem. Add a column. This square and this square need to add up to be 23x. I have 20x. I need 3x. So I put in a 3x. Take out an x. If I have 3x and I take out x, I get plus 3. And 3 times 5 is 15. Am I done? Yes. Why? That 15 matches the 15 above, which means my remainder is 0, which is good because I was told beforehand that x plus 5 was a factor, so my remainder has to be 0. If it's not 0, I did it wrong. Okay? So, what I've done, going back to my example, I took the number 30 and I divided it by 5 and I got the number 6. 5 was given to me, and then I took 6 and I just factored it into 2 times 3. I have a quadratic equation, x squared plus 4x plus 3. There are 2 factors inside there, so I need to use the box to figure out what they are. So I draw a 2 by 2 box. What do I do first? I'm going to put these in there, and you might be able to do this one in your head, but I'm gonna work it out the long way. X squared and 3. What's the next step? Multiply those together, and I get 3x squared. Are there factors of 3x squared that add to be 4x? 3 and 1. So I put in 3x and 1x. What does the top row share? An x. And if I take an x out, I get x plus 3. If I take an x out of the first column, I get plus 1. What does that do for me? Those are the remaining 2 factors of this polynomial. So x plus 1 and x plus 3. I was pretty close in the beginning when I guessed. It is a lot of work, which is why we're going to spend a couple days working on this one. So let me review what happened. I have an x to the third polynomial, which has 3 factors. My job is to find all 3 factors, but I don't know how to factor a cubic equation. Nobody ever taught me how to do it. So the worksheet told me that one of the factors is x plus 5. And I understand how division works, so I took the original polynomial, I divided it by x plus 5, and that ended up giving me a quadratic equation that had 2 factors, and I factored those to find the remaining 2 answers. And then I wrote all 3 answers out. Okay, let's do number 2. X to the third minus x squared minus 14x plus 24. And I know one of the answers is x minus 3. I'll use polynomial division to simplify this cubic equation. This will have 2 rows and an unknown number of columns. In the first column, I put x to the third. Is anybody confused up to this point? Everybody's good? Okay. pull out an x, and I get x squared. X squared times negative 3 is negative 3x squared. Add a column. Negative 3x squared and the next square in the top need to add to be negative 1. So I need to add 2x squared. Pull out an x, and I am left with 2x. 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. Add a column. Negative 6x and the next box need to add to be negative 14x. Negative 8. I'm already at negative 6. I need to reach negative 14. Subtract 8x. Pull out an x, and I get minus 8. And then negative 8 times negative 3 is 24. Good or bad? Good. Because that gives me a remainder of 0, which needs to happen because this polynomial, we were told that x minus 3 is a factor of that polynomial. Okay, now, that's not the answer. Now, I take my answer from that piece, and I factor it to figure out what the other two roots are. X squared plus 2x minus 8. I draw the box. And I take x squared and negative 8 and plug them in. Multiply those together. And I get negative 8x squared. My options are 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. Will one of those give me a plus 2? Negative 2 and positive 4. Negative 2x and 4x. In the top row, I pull out an x, which gives me x minus 2 and x plus 4. Those are the other two factors. So I write them over here. And those three factors are what created that x cubed polynomial. Okay. Let's do number 7. Ten x to the third plus 37x squared plus 37 plus 6. And one of the factors is 5x plus 1. What does that 10 do to the problem? Neither of the previous two problems had a number right there other than 1. So yeah, sometimes, yeah. What it means is that, well, it makes things more complicated, but the roots will be fractions. The place where it hits the x-axis will be fractions. So we might end up with, well, 5x plus 1 is one of the roots. So, sorry, is one of the factors. The root would be negative 1/5. We would subtract 1 and divide by 5. So anytime there's a number right there that does not divide out, one or more of your roots will have factors, which means one or more of your factors will have numbers in front of the x. Okay? It also makes factoring more complicated, but I think you guys are actually pretty good at that. All right. I'm going to put 5x plus 1 bring down the 10x to the third. How do you take a 5x out of 10x to the third? Divide it. Good. So what is 10x to the third divided by 5x? 2x squared. How do I know I divide instead of subtract? Well, think about the box. Things on the edges of the box get multiplied together to create the middle. things inside the box get added together to create the equation. So if we're building the outside of the box, we divide because it's the opposite of multiply. 2x squared times 1 is 2x squared. Add a column. 2x squared in the next box add up to be 37x squared. What do I need? 35x squared. Any questions there? No? We're good? Okay. Pull out a 5x. 35x squared divided by 5x is 7x. 7x times 1 is 7x. Add a column. Oh, I'm missing an x up there. 7x in the next box need to add up to 37x. 30x, good job. Pull out a 5 and an x, and I get plus 6. 6 times 1 is 6, good or bad? Good, because 6 is the number I wanted. What if I didn't get 6? Because I messed up. Yep. All right. Now we take the remaining polynomial, 2x squared, plus 7x plus 6. We stick that in the factor box, 2x squared and 6. And Seppi, this is the one that you have to stick in the box because there's a leading coefficient. At least I don't know how to do it without it. Multiply those together and I get 12x squared. Are there factors of 12x squared that add to be 7x? 3x and 4x. So 4x and 3x. What does the top row share? 2 and an x. 2x. And if I pull a 2x out of the top row, I get x plus 2. And if I take an x out of the first column, I get plus 3. The factors for this are the original 5x plus 1, 2x plus 3, and x plus 2. Okay, let me see if they... Nope, they don't. Not till tomorrow. Oh, no. Look at number 3. What's different about number 3? It has an x to the 4th. What should we do? Take out an x. So one of your factors is x minus 3, which they told you. Another factor is x. And then you're going to take, I'll write it down. So x to the 4th plus 3x to the 3rd minus 13x squared minus 15x. So this one has 4 answers. What? What did I say? Yes, this is number 3. Because we have an x to the 4th equation, there are 4 factors. One of them is x minus 3. But if you notice in the problem, every single term has an x. I'm going to pull that x out of every term. And I will get x times x to the 3rd plus 3x squared minus 13x minus 15. I don't even need to do division. And then this becomes one of my answers. And then I will divide this by x minus 3 to find the other 2 factors. So it looks more difficult, and it turns out it's pretty much the same. You just have to pull out that x. So go as far as number 12. Don't do that last section. I don't know if you'll get that far today, but don't go past 12. Okay? All right, get to work.